Armor is an essential part of Wynncraft. It's where most of every stat comes from and keeps you from dying from most, if not all, situations. But what if you did every dungeon instance without armor? Would it even be possible? Every dungeon, from Decrepit Sewers all the way to Eldritch Outlook, will be taken on and completed by a man completely naked. For this video, I did not use any armor, craftable consumables, or did the dungeon with anyone else. I wanted to do this on a fresh character and only do the first 3 dungeons, but when I actually did that, I thought it was way too easy. So I decided to do it on my assassin, but give myself a level cap, which is the recommended level of the current dungeon, of the weapon I can use, up until Fallen Factory. I also did not use any accessories up until Fallen Factory. Why Fallen Factory? Because that dungeon is complete dog shit. The start of this endeavor begins as any should by stripping butt naked in the middle of public. I purchase my first weapon, the Oakwood Dagger, and proceed to head to the Decrepit Sewers. I take off all my accessories to become a complete naked man and start the first dungeon. This dungeon went about as you would expect. It was pretty fucking easy. I opened all the doors without any issues whatsoever and proceeded to the boss room. Witherhead was about as you would expect, being defeated with pretty relative ease. The same type of vibe was felt for the Infested Pit and the Underworld Crypt dungeons. I used some random shop weapon for both dungeons, but both of them caused me any issues at all. Next was Time Sanctuary. For my weapon, it was still the same weapon I used for the previous 3 dungeons, because frankly, I was just too lazy to change it, bro. Now, there is no issues or problems with this dungeon, but I do have the bone to pick with this dungeon. It's just shit. What happened to the dinosaur dungeon that I remember from 2020? That shit was so gas. This dungeon is just worse in every way compared to the predecessor. But stuff aside, I finished the dungeon, threw my rewards away, and proceeded to Sandswept. Sandswept has a lot of annoying little shits who throw shit at you, so I decided to throw my old weapon away to purchase Draught Savior, because it has mana regeneration. I entered the dungeon and demolished it with no problems. I was a bit surprised, actually, that the little cunts that throw stuff at you didn't cause any issues, but we move. I enter the dungeon and tread kind of carefully at the beginning because while the floating eyes don't do a lot of damage, they do attack pretty quickly and there is an abundance of them, so I really didn't want to get cornered. I take the 10 tokens needed to progress and head into the 32 token room. The safest thing to do in this room is to just continuously fly, but you don't get enough mana from weightless, so it was a lot of flying and pirouetting and running around. The rest of the dungeon was pretty simple, and we went into the boss who died to a pirouette and multi-slash spam. Preparing for the Overgrown dungeon, I bought a really good Reaper of Souls. I pumped it with Water 5 powders because who the fuck is going to stop me? I know it ain't going to be you. You're watching this on YouTube. You ain't going to stop me. We entered the dungeon with complete vibrato, and surprisingly, it went really well, actually. Every room gave me little to no trouble. Granted, of course, I was playing pretty damn cautiously because I'm getting near to the point of being one-shot, but it really was not that bad at all. I entered the boss and treat him like a one-shot enemy just in case. But he truly wasn't annoying or painful even with the range abilities that he has. Galleon Graveyard. This dungeon reminds me of algebra. No one likes algebra, dude. But it's something that's forced upon us in our lives. This dungeon is just annoying. Everything in here has a range attack of some sort, and it's just really frustrating to deal with. I jump in, thinking nothing of the annoyance that was about to occur, and head to the first combat room. This is where reality sets in that I am really, really, really squishy, and I'm about to get my asshole eaten. Nearly everything in a dungeon has some sort of range attack or ability, or throws a TNT at you like they're from Palestine. So you just honestly have to get lucky in the combat rooms. I, of course, was not lucky and died to nothing. How fun. We completed the dungeon though, and rejoiced with a glass of rum and coke, because I am a raging alcoholic. Due to my raging alcohol problem, I needed to be drunk as absolute shit for Fallen Factory. Because holy fuck, this dungeon is the most buggy, annoying, and perfect personification of cancer that I have ever laid my eyes on in my life. Without preparation, we entered to get a feel for how this dungeon was going to be. I was kind of worried because everything hurts, but I was just like, let's just go in just to see like what the fuck is going to happen. The rooms are annoying, but pretty manageable, and we managed to get to the boss room on our first attempt. The goal for the boss room was to not touch the ground for as long as possible and swoop down to get the few materials and continue this process until I had enough to open the pipeline doors. This plan worked for a solid 1 minute before I got probed by one of the machines. We go in again, completely YOLOing this time because I assumed this dungeon wouldn't be that awful after the first attempt. As the common theme goes, I was wrong, and as punishment for being wrong, I got killed through a wall. We went back again to the exact same spot and died the exact same way. Oh, man. This dungeon, bro. It's making me express the best parts about myself. The sexual tension that this dungeon brings out in me is so heavy that it makes me want to make out with a shotgun barrel. And that's just unequivocally matched to any love that I've ever felt in my life. After my makeout session with suicide, I'd throw the accessory and level cap out the window because at this point, I gave 0 fucks. I went to Legendary Island to buy a Diamond Fusion Ring, equipped Intensity, Succession, and a Diamond Fusion necklace, and used Nullification as my weapon. I wanted to use literally anything else, but I actually had a pretty half-decent Nullification with mediocre defense rolls, so I thought it'd be best to rock with it for this dungeon. We went in, we got to the boss room, we managed to swoop down to pick up the parts that we needed to open up the left pipeline. We walked in, happy that we progressed, rejoicing, and... Okay, look. It's not my fault, okay? I was scratching my nose. You gotta believe me, okay? Like, I promise. I'm old. I have a beard, okay? Like, I was scratching my nose. It's okay, though. I learned about the turrets in the left room, and we go in again. We get to the boss room and fly past the turrets this time. So, at the end of the pipelines, there are 2 bosses that drop keys that you need to fight the computer boss. The one on the left is a ranged boss, so we want to kill him first, and then the second boss is a bit easier. So we kill him, and it gives us some hope and some happiness, and after killing him, we head over to the second pipeline and head to the right boss. Okay, look, that time, I promise, my cat was on my keyboard. It wasn't my fault. I can't move my cat because my cat is exploring the open world that is my home. Please. It's okay, though, because at the next run, we complete the Fallen Factory, and my suicidal tendencies magically go away. Eldritch Outlook. EO was definitely not the hardest one. That was definitely the Fallen Factory. But in my opinion, I think it's because I just automatically went into the dungeon assuming I was a one-shot kill. So I actually planned this dungeon around. It took a lot of planning to ensure that we can do this successfully. I went into the dungeon on my first attempt to get a lay of the land to see how difficult this was going to be. The first attempt actually went pretty far. We got past the mirror room and bridge without much trouble. The den was where I thought we were going to get hard stuck, because it's multiple bosses with minimal movement in the rooms. So, with that in mind, I put my armor back on, grabbed my Nirvana, and headed back to EO with the sole purpose of mapping out the best possible route, and to see if there are any cheesable spots in the boss room. My chat found the perfect route in the den, and I found a barrier high up in the boss room that allows me to sit there for one of the phases in the boss fight, keeping me from running out of mana while flying and potentially dying. One of my good friends invites me to his house where he gives me something that I did not know that I actually needed, an Amadeus. Amadeus is a level 74 water dagger, which doesn't sound good, but it can have up to 23 mana regen. And my friend casually rolled a max mana regen Amadeus while we were mapping out Eldritch Outlook, and he just gave it to me. With this weapon, I can essentially fly infinitely without the need of armor, but just to be safe, I put on Moonpool Circlet before I enter the boss arena, just to ensure that I have enough mana to continuously fly. The combat strat for this dungeon, or boss room specifically, was to prioritize mana over damage. But we still need some damage, or I would choke the longer the fight would actually go on. We enter the Outlook with a plan of motion, and the plan is to not fucking die, because I literally had pizza rolls in the oven at this time, and I was pretty fucking hungry. We destroy the mirror room without any issues, and we go to the bridge. I almost die at the bridge because I had a really bad launch, so I reset myself at the start of this bridge, and I try again. Working much better this time. The den strat my chat came up with was pretty simple. After the boss, we go right, left, then left, as those are the bosses that do not have any ranged abilities. We take care of the first boss, the second boss, the third boss, and the fourth boss was a tiny bit of a cunt who hid in the corner, but we killed him and moved to the final den boss. The final den boss is unskippable and unavoidable, as both paths lead to this den boss, and this boss has multiple range abilities. But we touch them up and move on to parkour. The Wynn community got some fucking issues, because while I was streaming this, multiple people complained about this goddamn parkour, but this parkour is bad. If you fail this shit, you need help. We prep ourselves for the boss fight, offhanding our nullification for when we use shurikens, so we do a tiny bit more damage, and we go inside. We get to the common cheese for when eyes rain down from the sky, and continue on throwing shurikens at this guy. Sometimes I like to get some Jasmine Bloom damage in, but it's mainly just shurikens, which is why this boss took 14 minutes. I got up onto the elevated barrier to avoid running out of mana during this phase, and waited until it was over. 20 years later, we do enough damage to get to the final phase, where all we have to do is fly above the little eye, and nothing should kill or hit us. And after 14 minutes, and one hand cramp later, and burnt pizza rolls, we completed Eldritch Outlook without any armor. Thank you to my stream chat, who is cheering me on and helping me through this painful endeavor. I stream all my Wynncraft challenges on Twitch, so feel free to stop by if you're interested in more raw gameplay. And thank you to you for watching this video. No armor was something that I've been trying in many different ways for over 2 months, and I'm glad one of my biggest challenges and hurdles is actually completed. I know I didn't do a corrupted dungeons, but if you'd like to see no armor a corrupted dungeons, make sure to like the video, and if the feedback is good, I'll go ahead and do it. Thank you for watching.